So you've had a great day on the water, you've let your board down, you've stuffed it in the bag, you've chucked it in your car and you've come home. Let's have a look at what we're going to do now. So first of all, in most water sports we have a principle of clean, check, dry. What that's for, that's to stop invasive species in our waterways travelling from one waterway to the next on your equipment. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure there's none of that. So we just go around the board, make sure you've got no weed, make sure there's no little bugs, any mud, any dirt, any of that. So we're going to look for that first. Once we're happy there's none of that, then we're going to go around, we're going to check all the seams, make sure nothing's coming off, make sure nothing's got too many knocks and scrapes. Anything that might, you know, be relatively serious damage to the board. You're going to get marks, you're going to get a few scratches and things, and most of the time it's not too bad, but I'll go into that in more detail in a minute. So we're going to go round this. Now when I wash it, I wash all of our boards with car shampoo. So I'm going to wash it just the same as I do with the car. Bucket and sponge and some car shampoo. I find that's really good actually, because it leaves a slight film on the board, a slight shiny film, which seems to, I think it protects it a little bit better than if you were just using washing up liquid, something like that. So I'm going to go right the way around. I'm going to look at all of the D-rings, make sure there's nothing wrong with any of those. They're all connected to the board exactly how they should be. The bungees, they're all good. Any fancy straps that you've got on the bungees, make sure they're all okay. I'm going to look around all of the valves. This has got 2 valves just because it's got 2 chambers, but make sure they all look good as well. Now underneath is possibly where you get the most wear actually, because I don't really think your feet are causing too much problems, but underneath where the fin box is, and you want to go right the way around there and make sure that's really connected well. Make sure that there's no grit and dirt inside where the fin slides in or clips in. One of the biggest problems people get is they have trouble getting their fin in and they have trouble getting their fin out. Most of the time that's because there's grit, sand, little bits and pieces from rivers and from, like I say, the beach. So make sure that's nice and clean. If it's nice and clean when it goes in, there's not really going to be anything get in there once the fin's in. So it shouldn't be too bad to just knock it out with your hand. But that can be a problem, so make sure that's really, really clean. Any scrapes that you've got at all, have a good look at them. Just make sure that none of it, you know, is sort of catastrophic stuff. You might want to put a patch on, and we'll have a think about that. But you know, generally I find if you're careful looking after it, they're normally quite easy to look after. So I'm going to give it a wash with the bucket and sponge, and then we'll have another look. Now the next thing you want to look at is your leash. The way the leash connects to the board is generally through Velcro. It's got all sorts of special sort of lock-in ways that it goes on so it won't come off, and all of this Velcro, as it gets older, it starts to wear a bit. You might want to think about that if you've got a leash that's starting to get a bit old. Think about replacing it perhaps, but up until then I find getting the bits out is quite easy with a nail brush if you need to, on the hook and loop parts of it. But generally they're not too bad. It's all connected right, it all looks pretty good, there's no wear on it. This is a coily one, you can get straight ones for depending on what sort of water you're on. Yeah, that all looks pretty good. Now that's no good if where it connects to the board is no good, so have a good look around this, around the heavy duty D-ring at the back that it goes on. and the piece of string that it connects to that with, that's all good. I'm happy with that, so that can dry and go in the bag. The only real piece of fabric, there's two bits of fabric really on this, on most boards actually, that's the handle in the middle and the bungees. They seem to be the bit that takes the longest to dry. I would never put a board away that's got any damp on it at all, so I make sure that it's all nice and dry before it goes in the bag, because especially in hot weather it's going to sit in there and it's going to fester. You don't really want that. You really don't want to be taking it out maybe in a month or 2 months time and find out it's all got mouldy spots all over it. That's going to seriously affect your credibility on the water, I would have thought. So we don't want that. Now actually, the only time my bags are ever zipped up is when they're in transit, so when it's going in the car, when it's coming out of the car. Other than that, I always leave them just unzipped on the top, just so the air can sort of circulate a little bit. I think that's quite a good idea. Right, so let's have a look at the valves. Okay, I always make sure that the top's put on when I wash it, because I don't want to get any water in there. Now there is moisture inside the board anyway, there will be, because of the air that you're putting inside it. And when you press that down and let the air out, the expansion of all of that air tends to create a mist inside the board. So there is some damp inside there, but you don't want to be getting a lot of water in there because it's just not good for it. And again, it's going to go mouldy and sort of horrible, and you don't want that. You don't want anything that might affect the integrity of the seams and things on the inside. So just have a think about that. So I always make sure that the caps are put back on and tightened up before I wash it. Now, also, these, sometimes you might find one of these valves comes loose. Now, when you bought your board, you'll probably have got a patch kit with it that comes with a little spanner. Let me just get that. This particular one came with that one. The spanners aren't always the same. Depending on who made the valve for the company that you got your board from, you're going to find they might have different numbers of teeth. So keep hold of the one that came with your board or with that manufacturer. If that did need tightening up, that literally just goes in there and do what it says on the top, to either tighten it up or open it up. And it's basically righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. That's generally the case. But if you don't need to touch it, don't touch it, because they're generally bonded in round them. If it hasn't come loose, leave it as it is. It's the sort of thing you want to make sure it's nice and clean, nice and dry, everything's good before you start messing about with these valves. So yeah, if you can, leave it, don't fiddle with it. If it's not a problem, don't create one. Okay, so that's good, got that, and that's pretty much done. And really, now it's just let the air out and fold it up. Now, a lot of people, they use their pump to suck the air out and suck it absolutely flat. That's good, it comes like it, it's designed to do it. I don't really see there's a problem with that. I just don't do it. I find if I roll it towards the valves, I can get all the air out. I don't need it too flat. The bag's big enough that it will go in the bag. There's nothing else going to be in the bag with it anyway, so I just roll it up so that it's all good. The only thing you want to make sure is that the skeg box is flat when it's folded up, so it's not going round a corner. Now they're bonded on really well, but you know, you don't need to be twisting or affecting the skeg box on it, the fin box. Apart from anything else, if it is slightly bent, you're going to have trouble getting your fin in and out, and you don't want that. So let's not do that. And I think that's about it. So yeah, I'm going to roll this one up and start with the next one. Okay, thanks a lot. Like, subscribe, stay tuned.